I said, can you build a team in a brand new city with zero agents and zero transactions and scale it to 1,000 sales per year in 36 months? And that was my goal. And we did that. I built the team. We hired 72 agents, average agent production right around 18 transactions per person. We sold 1,000 transactions in our 36, the third year in the business. Then in the fourth year, we brought it up over 2,000 or close to 2,000 transactions. And then right after that, I ended up selling the company.
Welcome back to Cracking the Code. Today's episode is all about leadership, scalability, and what it really takes to build a real estate business that performs at a high level without falling into chaos. And we are super excited for today's guest. They made a decision to scale and sell a brokerage in just a few years, ultimately leading to a seven-figure payday, which I think most of us would not mind learning a little bit more about. He's also been working closely with Bill Pipes in the G3 Nation community, helping agents and team leaders sharpen their operations, strengthen accountability, and build businesses designed for long-term growth. He and I recently connected during the G3 Clearwater Mastermind, and after hearing his perspective on leadership, systems, and team growth, we knew we had to bring him onto the show. David Thompson, real estate leader, coach, and operator, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, I know that was a mouthful of an intro, but let's start from the beginning. David, how did you first get into real estate?
Well, it's in the United States Navy in the middle of the Persian Gulf back in 1987, 1991. So I was serving on the USS Callahan back when we escorted tankers and the Stark got hit way back then. Anyway, so when I got out of the military, got hired as an air traffic controller. They had to do another security investigation. So it took about 6 months. I got my real estate license, sold a bunch of houses, turned down the air traffic controller, and never looked back. So I've been doing real estate mortgages and all different things as a side of real estate business now for, I think that's 36 years. So quite a long time.
Wow,
Yep.
so it really it's been a long game that you've been in here. So it's not
Mhm.
magical what you've recently been able to accomplish. It's something that's been hard earned and a long-term process. So tell us a little bit about what that road looked like in the interim from that those humble beginnings back in the Navy to your more recent successes. Give us a little timeline of how that
Yeah.
process went so some of our listeners can kind of learn a little bit about what your journey has been in real estate.
Yeah. So when I got out there, I was still actually in the Navy Reserves at the time, but back in the day, I was selling 36 houses a year, and I went to a coach at the time that was way back then, Mike Ferry. Went to a Mike Ferry seminar, and I looked at my buddy next to me, and I said, "I'm going to sell 100 homes next year," and I sold 117. And the third year after that, which would have been my fifth year in business, I actually sold 300 listings that year and stayed at 300 listings consecutively for many years. And there's a story behind the structure of that if you wanted to get into it. But so as an individual agent in my early 20s, selling 300 plus houses myself. And through the years, I built teams, sold teams, done real estate mortgages, and recently sold a company in a Remax office, several offices, moved to Michigan. And with the goal was this, based on everything that I know and learned through coaching and my experience and all the friends in the business and the things I've accomplished. I said, can you build a team in a brand new city with zero agents and zero transactions and scale it to 1,000 sales per year in 36 months? And that was my goal. And we did that. I built the team. We hired 72 agents, average agent production right around 18 transactions per person. We sold 1,000 transactions in our 36, the third year in the business. Then in the fourth year, we brought it up over 2,000 or close to 2,000 transactions. And then right after that, I ended up selling the company. So yeah, so I accomplished that goal. It was fun. It was fun saying, can you do that? And one of the exciting things is that, I always call it gamifying, is like you build a business plan and then just executing it. It's just a lot of fun. So,
Talking about the business plan, this is something that's
yeah.
super
Mhm.
interesting, and I think this is a great exercise and maybe a mental note for all the listeners out there. Let's talk about how you come about that because it was relatively nice for me to see. it was almost like an aspiration that was then reverse engineered into a logical, deployable plan. So can you
Mhm.
tell us in kind of the broad strokes, and you don't have to go to into the depth that we did at the Clearwater event, but give us a little broad strokes on how you construct your ideal business plan.
Before I do that, let me mention the problem with most real estate agents when they're building teams, if we're going to talk about teams, is the fact that it's a really good realtor, somebody that's good at sales, and they hire a buyer's agent, and they hire an administrative person, maybe an operation, and all of a sudden they have this team and then they want to grow the team. And the problem with that is not all salespeople are great business people. It is a whole new world when we start building a company and a team. And so, one of the things that we do in coaching, obviously, is applying the business practices to building a team. So, business is numbers. There's no question business is numbers. And if you look at what we actually, what I actually built, it sounds impressive to go from 0 to 1,000 transactions in 36 months. It sounds impressive going from 0 agents to the amount of agents we had, which was 72. But if you look at that, that was basically 36 months. We hired 2 agents every single month for the period of time, and we scaled at that. So it wasn't anything like, hey, we recruited at 10, 20 people every month. It was consistent growth, and it was actually designed to have consistent growth. There were some times that we actually slowed down recruiting. But to answer your question, we have a vision, right? And the vision is, could be a dollar amount I want to sell my company for, which is usually 3 to 5 times profit, right? Or it could be I want to build a company that provides me an X amount of income without me actually in production, right? And then what we have to do is we backwards engineer that plan. So if I know how much, these are some KPIs that are really important on when you're dealing with teams. You need to know what your average income you make after agent compensation. All my transactions over a period of time divided by the income divided by the transaction will tell me how much money I'm making after I pay the agents. We need to know what my average amount of transactions my average agent's doing. And when we know those two things, we can figure out how much money I make per agent. So if you want to make, for example, $1 million, you're going to actually end up, because we divide it by zero point 0.7, which gives you 1,428,000, and we divide that by the amount of money that we make per agent, tells us what our agent count is. And then we have to figure out when we want to have that achieved by. And it's just a math equation. You have to recruit so many agents per month. Or I should actually say you have to grow the company by so much because you are going to have some attrition and et cetera. But that's going to give you your formula and then you just execute.
And I think what was really beautiful about the exercise is it brought a lot of us back to reality, right? Because when you look at the multiplier on the number of contacts, for example, if you're growing in terms of recruiting for your
Mhm.
brokerage or for your team, and you look at the number of
Yeah.
contacts required to result into an appointment that would
Mhm.
result into a conversion, you're
Yes.
looking at quite a number of touches there, and it quickly brings you back to earth on what's realistic. But it's great because
Mhm.
you're able to create a deployable, realistic, and then in that case, consistent plan, right? Because I think a lot of
Yeah.
agents, like you said, maybe the exuberance or the lack of business acumen may and the lack of it being written down may sometimes
Mhm.
create this thought that's floating in the ether, and then when
Mhm.
it's not tangible, it becomes the last thing on the list of to-dos, and we say, oh
Mhm.
man, I wish I could grow my team quicker. I wonder why I haven't had as many appointments for recruiting this week. But it seems it comes
Yeah.
down to being realistic with your numbers and your weekly schedule, and then hitting those consistent key points based on your business model.
But there's actually three major areas that we concentrate on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we concentrate on recruiting, which is the amount of agents that you have, right? We concentrate on average agent production, scaling your agents, because quite frankly, if you're going to run a team, it's our responsibility to get the agents to accomplish their goals. That's our job, right? And the third thing that we're going to do is concentrate on the systems to support our agents and our clients. So, like if I were to ask you, and there's no wrong answer, but which one of those are the most important? Recruiting, scaling your agents, or systems? What would you say?
That's a tough one. I think scaling my agents would be personally what
Yeah.
what we kind of aim for.
Yeah, and actually it's my thought too. And there's no wrong answer to that.
Yeah,
But here's the thing: if we get our agents to scale, like if I hire two agents, make them rock star, and do it again the next month and the next month, everyone starts to see what I do. And what
yep,
happens, recruiting is actually a natural progression of a great running team. And if we scale our agents, people all see the success, then recruiting becomes easy. And when recruiting becomes easy, we make enough money to hire for these systems, right? But there
absolutely.
is three buckets that we concentrate on: recruiting, scaling, and systems.
That's very important and powerful. So I want all our viewers to take a note of those very important buckets when building this business model. Now, another thing that is curious to me, and it's specifically in terms of recruiting, and you've grown huge enterprises in a very quick matter of time, which means you have this down pretty tightly. So a
Mhm.
lot of conversations I've had with different broker leaders or team leaders that are in that growth mode, when it comes to scale, some of them will just say, hey, I will take anybody. Some of them will say, I only want newbies. Some of them say, I want somebody that's within this very specific avatar because I know that I'm a little bit more expensive in terms of maybe the other brokerages, but I have more to
Mhm.
offer people within this range that are looking for this type of growth. So when
Mhm.
you were kind of creating that model for your
Mhm.
growth plan, how important was looking at that agent avatar, or did you have one or multiple that you used to kind of grow your company?
Yeah, so that's one of the things when you set up your recruiting plan, you have to figure out your avatars, right?
Yeah.
So my avatar, typically my favorite avatar for myself, right, is the agent that has sold three, four houses per year. And it's pretty easy for me to bring that person to that 15, that 20 mark, right? And I'm
Mhm.
not training somebody how to start in the business. However, if I find somebody that has grit, which I think grit and culture are the two things we hire for, right? So if we find somebody that just wants it, I don't mind bringing in a newer agent and plugging them in. Or an experienced agent is also great to add to the company too. But my basic avatar in the last company was the agent that was selling a smaller amount and scaling them to be bigger. Oh, one of the things really important to understand is we recruit what we have. So if you think about it, if I'm a very eager an agent with grit and I want to join a team that's just going to kill it and I'm going to make a lot of money, and I have two teams to choose from. I have one team where everybody's selling real estate. Everybody sold at least 10 houses, let's just say, and another team over here where half the agents haven't sold anything, right? Where am I going to go? I'm going to head to the team that's producing, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the hobbyist, right? The hobbyist is going to avoid the production team and it's going to go to the team where half the people haven't sold anything. So I get this question all the time: why is it hard for me to recruit? And I go into Zillow and I look at their team and I see half the team members haven't sold anything. Well, how are you going to track somebody if you can't actually scale the agents that you have?
Yeah.
So it's really important to make sure that you're scaling the agents and that you're only bringing people in the team that actually do produce. It should be a culture of success.
That's yeah, and I 100% think everybody that's listening would vibe with that because at the end of the day, what would we want? You know, if we're a junior
Mhm.
agent joining the industry for the first time, you want support and you want somebody that is offering you a clear plan to success if you can stay consistent with whatever
Mhm.
that regimen or model may be.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about the industry today. And you've
Yeah.
had recent success, and that's why I want to ask you about winning, but you've had recent success in growth, and there's a lot of noise out there, especially now with news, AIs, and everything of how you could get it done, right? But
Mhm.
from your perspective, what are those top agents and teams who are just absolutely crushing and winning in 2026 really doing differently? And as a coach, I know you see a lot. So what do you see as being those that winning edge?
Yeah. Start with the agents first, right? Um, I think most people in this business overcomplicate things way too much. So, Puya, if I ask you this question, if you would have doubled the amount of people that you talked to last year, you double the amount of past clients, sphere of influence, leads, whatever you have, would you sold twice as many houses?
Likely, if not more.
Yeah. So it really, and this is one thing I always say, contacts equal contracts. So what we do is we get lost as agents in so many things that aren't putting us in front of somebody.
Mm.
Our job is to set appointments. And when we're not setting appointments, when we're not on an appointment, we should be setting appointments. And we get lost in all the other work in the business.
Mhm.
Understand, our job is to have conversations. And the more conversations you have, the more successful. So for single agents, conversations, that's your focus. How many appointments can I set? How many people can I talk to? However, you get that is the strategy. If it's open houses, if it's a Zillow lead, if it's door knocking, that's the strategy. But the conversations is the answer. From a team perspective, the ones that are killing it are the ones that understand they're running a business and they're executing their business. The principles of business are still, they have to be involved, right? You have to understand all your KPIs. You have to understand how to engage with your agents. You have to understand how to market. There's so many hats that we wear, and they all have to be executed at a high level.
What is the mindset you're seeing? What is that mindset? What are you seeing in terms, is it a tenacity? Is it a flexibility to kind of restructure on a quick basis? Or is it something that you need to hold firm? What are you seeing as that? And let's speak specifically maybe about the team leaders and the broker owners. What do you see as being their like their little mindset edge that is allowing them to kind of cross that finish line a little bit quicker than others?
They know why they're doing it. They know why they're doing it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the people that are successful in life, period, are the people that can tell you, I'm doing this because I talk to somebody that I say, how many transactions you're going to sell? And they say, I'm going to sell 30. I say, why? And they don't really have a good answer to. They sold 25, they're good, right? But it's not the 30 transactions that give us success. That's not the goal. It's what the 30 transactions do for you in your life. I'm going to pay off my house. My wife is
Mhm.
going to stay home and homeschool our kids. It's no different when it comes to the team leader. The team leader very specifically knows what the end game is. And the team leaders that don't understand the end game, they're lost. The team that they understand the end game, they're on a track and a trajectory, I guess would be the right word, that is heading right toward that goal, right? They know why they're doing it. That's simply it. That gives them the motivation every day because it's not easy. But you have to be excited about what you're doing, so you have to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to be excited about it.
I see a very unique reoccurring theme, and it's the key of simplicity to a lot of your secrets right here that you're giving
Keep it
us.
simple.
It's honestly it is. It's keep it simple, and that simplicity is keeping the singular and detailed vision that you have in focus and making sure maybe you don't stray on that, which is breaking through
Mhm,
the noise like we just talked about, or maybe it's developing a realistic growth plan because hey, maybe I could hit that number, but it's not going to be in 3 years. It's going to be five or seven.
mhm,
But I need to be realistic with how I need to adjust my numbers. So yeah, I think that simplicity and that unified
mhm.
thought and knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it, as easy as it is to say, it is really the key to the success that we're seeing.
100%.
So this is another thing, and this is
Mhm,
something that comes up at a lot of different coaching events that I see, and even with agents of my own that we'll see. So agents want growth, right? And we all want growth, and then production goes up, but then things start to break on the operational side of things. So, what are you seeing as some of the biggest mistakes these teams are making when they start to hit a stride and they focus so much on growth and they get that growth, but they're not keeping up maybe with some of the system growth that supports the ability for them to handle that workload? What are you seeing as some of the big mistakes and maybe some of the cautionary tales of what not to do when you're in that hyper growth mode?
Yeah, so this goes right back to the very first thing. They don't run it like a business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I backwards engineer the entire company, I can lay it out on a spreadsheet. I know it sounds very geeky, but I can lay it out on a spreadsheet and I can show you how many transactions I'm supposed to do in any given month, and I can project how many people I'm supposed to hire, and I need to hire the next person, right? If you can look at my hands, I know some people aren't seeing the hands, but that's a structured, solid company. That is not.
Right.
So many because that falls over, right? So if we have massive growth, but we're not thinking about the impact of the employees in the system to match our growth, here's a really important statement. Really important statement. When we build things inside of a team, we never build them based on where we are today. We build them based on where we're going to be.
Hmm.
If we do not do that, we have constant change. So if you tell me you want to sell 1,000 transactions and you want to create a transaction coordination system inside your company, I'm not going to build it with you based on 100 deals. We're going to build it based on 1,000 deals because then it's a system that we can grow into. See, that's business planning versus being reactive.
So again, going back, making sure that you're thoroughly planning the business and staying active, looking at the growth plan of your business, and as you hit these phase benchmarks, I would say it's critical that we adapt and
Mhm.
quickly accept the elements that need to change to allow for the comfortable growth. And I know growth can always be
Mhm.
painful, but it could be less painful, right? Um, what do
That's
you,
fun.
yeah, yeah. What would you say is a system or discipline that is a non-negotiable when it comes to growth?
The first one's going to sound really basic, but your morning routine is no different than when you're a single agent versus when you're a team. Focusing on your business plan in the morning, focusing on the three, four things that are, this is what I suggest, three, four things in life that you're blessed about. I have several businesses going on right now. I write all the business plans every single day by hand so I can focus on the numbers so it goes up in my head and I can start to believe them, right? I can also see things a little different in them and I can also see where I'm matching to them. That morning routine is so important to start everything. It's just you got to constantly monitor your business.
So give us a snapshot of your morning routine as you were on the road and the ramp up trajectory for this recent endeavor that you had.
It's the same routine I've had since I got out of the military. It hasn't changed. So every morning you get up, you have a cup of coffee. I love coffee, so I want to sit there and have my good cup of coffee, right? Good cup of coffee. You do your morning blessings, right? What you're blessed about. Keep yourself in a positive attitude, right? You write your business plan. You look at your numbers. You figure out where you're going. You have your goal board. You have your dream board or whatever you want to call it. Your morning routines are so important. I throw exercise in it, right? And then plug yourself into the day. But your day is structured too, right?
Yeah.
Um, Here, I'll throw this out for the audience. It just as a single agent. And when we talk about our activities, right? So we have activities in the business, and I grade them as A, B, C, D. A activities are the activities you get paid. You get paid as a single agent. You get paid to go on listing appointments, buyer appointments with highly motivated, realistic buyers, and negotiating contracts. Those are the only things you get paid for. B are the things that cause A to happen, and that's prospecting and lead follow up. I would throw some marketing in there. C is everything else in your business that is important, which everything on that level as you grow your business can be delegated. And D are the dumb things that we do in our business, right? The more you can do A and B, the more money you'll make. Most people's schedule is based on all their C activities.
Yeah.
Successful people have their schedules based on A and B. Now, when you run a team, you're going to add a couple to that list. My A is now could be listing, if I'm still in production, listing appointments, buyer's appointment, negotiating contracts, but it's also going to be recruiting appointments. And on my B, I'm going to add on prospecting for real estate agents on there and meeting with my staff. But it's really important to structure your day to be successful or else you're just being reactive. Even if you're an individual running your own company, and don't have partners, I would suggest you have a business meeting every week with yourself
Yeah.
where you bring your KPIs and you're looking at your numbers and you're literally your staff brings a report to you and you're studying and you do that every Wednesday at let's say at 9 o'clock. But you have to know every single number inside your business all the time.
Well, and another thing I'd like people to take away is note about the morning routine. It's critical that there was a work-life balance built into that. There was some
Mhm.
moments of personal growth. The exercise, the enjoyment of coffee, the taking in kind of the day before things get started. So I think a lot of people struggle with the on-off switch. But what I've seen a lot of successful leaders do, it's the switch is always on, but it becomes a part of your life that's a comfortable part of your life. And I've seen the people that are the most able to articulate it, clear idea,
Mhm. Mhm.
simplicity in the concept, but it could be complex in terms of all the little things that you add on, but simplicity in concept. And it Seems like that's exactly what you're preaching right now. Um, so I would say the market has changed pretty significantly over the last couple of years.
Hmm.
And if you read the news, you know, you'll see that it's saying there's projections that some agents are going to slowly start to taper down, the ones that came in during the boom era of the pandemic, and now that things aren't falling into your lap as much, they're going to start to wind down. So how do you coach the agents that you work with to kind of stay adaptable and maybe mentally tenacious during uncertain or shifting market times?
Um, Bad markets are good markets. So, when we look at anybody that's been in the business for a long time, they're in the business during the worst real estate markets, right? And in those 3 years when we had the worst real estate market ever, all the foreclosures and everything, I'm going way back, right? Um, the average real estate agent made more money during that period of time during the worst market because half the agents went out of business and the agents that were in business changed what they did. We went to foreclosures, we went to short sales and working with investors. The market itself doesn't dictate what we do on a daily basis. It doesn't dictate our business. The people that are successful right now understand that and they actually take advantage of it. Got a little, and many of your listeners have probably heard this list before, but these are the people that will do business in any market. I'm going to read them off real quick. These are the D's. Okay.
Mhm.
Death. When people die, they sell houses. Diapers, diplomas, defaults, diamonds, divorce, and then I added two, de-relocation, wanted to keep the D, and de-retirement. But that list of people right there, no matter what the market, they're always doing something. In most markets, the most it's off is maybe 20%. That's still a lot. And the reason why we think the market is bad is because we're comparing it to a market that was good. It's all a matter of perception. But if you pay attention to your schedule, like as a single agent, if I'm going to spend 2 hours a day prospecting, 1 hour a day doing lead follow up, and I do that every single day, for example, like we could do anything for prospecting. But if that's my schedule, I'm going to prospect every day and do a lead follow up. You're going to have the consistency equals consistent production. You're never going to have a problem in your business. So the market doesn't matter. So good agents understand all this stuff about the market. It doesn't matter. People are still buying and selling. You just have to work a little harder to get the same thing, but it's still there.
Absolutely. Everybody needs to note David's D's. Those are great endpoints for any market. I
Yeah,
think you should trademark that one.
yeah.
So when we're speaking of culture, you know, and you're growing or scaling in any case, what do you see as being the biggest pitfall? And I mean this in a culture or
Mhm.
inter-office sense, and not so much on the business perspective. What do you see as being the biggest pitfall that team leaders or broker leaders make when growing their business?
That they hire anybody that has a heartbeat and wants to work for them. And quite frankly, I mean, we should be very selective on who comes into our company. If you want to create a company, you design it. It's your baby, right? You
Mhm.
want to design that with people that are success attitude, right? A successful culture, but a culture that you determine. I always looked at the company as a family where everybody's high-fiving each other. There's no prima donnas. You get to create that. And the problem is, you know, it's even like so much things about a team is so much like when you're a single agent. So, I'd ask this question: have you ever listed a house or worked with somebody you never wanted, you realize you didn't want to work with? And the answer is usually yes. So if you think about that, but if you had 10 listings and you had 10 pendings at the time and you had 10 appointments at the time and you had $1 million to put in the bank account, you probably would have thought about that a little different, right? Made a different choice. So when you prospect, you don't have to put up with that. What gives us the freedom in our business, right? It's no different when you're running a team. If I have my schedule full of recruits that I'm prospecting for and I have lots of choices, I get to pick who I want to work with. The problem is that they're not the team leaders that are not prospecting and they're not marketing and they don't have a schedule full of appointments. They choose anybody. And when you choose anybody, it's going to cause a real big problem inside your growing company. In fact, your company probably isn't going to grow.
Yeah. the warm body approach is it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work for real estate. And like you mentioned, the family, it's a good analogy because if you treat your brokerage like a home, everybody should feel
Hmm.
comfortable, right? And you
Yeah.
generally vet people before you open the door and let them in, or you know what their purpose is. So
Hmm.
you know, the same can be said when it comes to vetting out either employees in office partners too. I think that's one that I've seen. People are quick to find the value in an agreement or a partnership agreement, but they don't
Hmm.
always necessarily find out what that culture impact will be when you have a different person with a different workflow and they're waving a different banner. You know, to a
Hmm.
degree, what is that going to do to your office? So it's very interesting on making sure you properly vet who's going to come
Yeah.
and visit your home.
Yeah. Good way to
Uh,
put it.
yeah. So
Hmm.
we see that one of the biggest things that I get from agents when I talk to them when we're doing our little one-on-ones is, oh, I'm busy. You know, I'm busy. And I think you probably hear it more than I do on scale and maybe even from a team or broker owner perspective. So, at what point do you think these leaders are hitting a ceiling because of either lack of organization or lack of delegation? What would you say is the realistic percentage out there that people are actually too busy when it comes to workflow, or are they just not structured in the proper way?
Well, as a single agent, as you're growing your business, right? There's a certain point that it only makes sense starting to have leverage. I talk to people that are starting small teams, right? Let's say you could make $10,000 selling a house, right? And then they don't want to hand it off to their buyer agent because I can make $10,000 on the sale, or 20,000 or 50,000. You live in California, whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, I make half as much money, right? But if I spent 10 hours showing that house, I figure out what I make per hour. If I hand it off to somebody with leverage, how much did I actually get paid per hour? I got
Mhm.
$5,000 per 10 minutes, right? Leverage is so important to have. You can only grow at a certain level until you start putting leverage in. When I was building the team, after the first 6 months, because I started ground up, after the first 6 months, I never invested more than 15 hours a week in the company, and I grew it to that level, but I never put more than 15 hours into the company because I got the right people in the right places and the right systems, and I used leverage. And that allowed me to have other companies at the same time as I was growing that company. Leverage is a key to business, without a question. Single agent or a company, you have to have leverage.
Yeah, and it's thinking scale minded, like you said earlier. It's not building something for if my goal is 1,000 transactions, it's not building for 100. It's building for the 1,000. So if your growth plan dictates that growth and you are trying to do it all yourself, and you're not delegating, or you're thinking that you could be the everyman, it doesn't work because, like you mentioned, it's a great point. You know, you build a team that way. That's the
Mhm.
development of building out your buyer agent fleet, and that's the development of really putting a name in the community. So personally,
Yeah.
what would you say is your secret magic formula? 15 hours a week. Tell me about, and it doesn't have to be in like, hey, I did this many calls. What are the focus points that you did, and where did you spend that time? And what are some of the things that you felt comfortable and you feel comfortable saying that other leaders can probably delegate away? And
Hmm.
but what are the things that should be kept close to the vest?
As far as when I was growing my company, this last one,
Yep.
okay. So for the first 6 months, I worked my rear off because I was everything, right? Okay. And I didn't want to invest a lot of money into the company. I actually wanted, as when I wrote it down, I was going to take this and naturally grow it. So I was taking the income that I earned from the company to reinvest back, and I hired the right people, right? So it's all a matter of hiring the right people. And I actually brought in a partner, and I brought partners in, and the partners actually took over a lot of the activities too. So you completely leveraged from day one in the company. Well, I actually say about 6 months into the company.
Wow.
My
Wow.
job is to pass on my skill sets to others. That's one of my jobs, right? To either the buyer agent, listing agent, or operations director or sales manager. My job is to pass on the skills, but my main job is the vision of the company and putting in the right people in the right places with the right systems.
So speaking of systems, and that's a great
Mhm,
segue and kind of putting
mhm,
people and things in the right places.
mhm,
Technology is moving extremely quickly right now, and
mhm,
even more of a buzzword would be AI,
mhm.
that famous two-letter word that has been taking over every industry and giving some people fear and giving others hope and some false promise, I think, as well. So, what's your take on where AI fits into the real estate operations and sales world?
First of all, I love AI. If I didn't do all these business, I would be a computer engineer. I'm a nerd. I'm a tech guy. I love this stuff, right? To me, it's just so exciting, and I have to purposely keep myself from diving into it all day long, right? Or else I'd want to do that. So you can see the big smile on my face. But I have the benefit of the fact that I worked in the real estate business before we had computers. I worked in the real estate business before cell phones came out. I worked in the real estate business before the fax machine. I worked in the real estate business before, I'm really dating myself, but I worked in the real estate business before the MLS shared all the data with the third parties like Zillow, right? So we've gone through so many things that were like, this is the thing that's going to cause the problem. And in every situation that's ever happened, agents have been able to do more business in less time. I do believe people want to work with people. And I think that's going to always happen. Now, all that said, if you do not understand AI, just like way back in the day, people had jobs that didn't understand the computers. And I remember these conversations. I'm never going to learn that. They were unemployed very quickly. We have to use AI. Um, as a side note, I was talking to a doctor just the other day, a radiologist, and when radiology got AI first came out in radiology, they said radiology would be done all but done by AI. And today there is more need for radiologists than there ever has because the AI has created such efficiencies and expanded what radiology does. I think the same thing's going to happen in real estate. But I do know this, if you prospect every day, you do lead follow up every day, you pay attention to your schedule because the only three things that we have control over, we have control over our attitude, we have control over our schedule, and we have control over our skills. We concentrate on that. We pay attention to our schedule every day and execute. We're going to be fine, just fine. In fact, I think we'll do more business in less time. I don't think it's scary at all.
In working with clients and in your own personal experience, what has most recently risen to the top as the most unique in real estate application of AI you've heard of somebody using?
Probably the most unique is getting into our databases. And there's a lot of companies that actually do that now that monitor the database and monitors the conversations that are going on. That is probably the most unique, but it has its limitations too, right? Because I don't think it replaces a human being that has a skill set that can work with their agents. It does point things out. I don't think AI is there yet to be a trainer. But there are some great systems out there that monitor our databases. And that's there. I've been playing around with AI for marketing, and I don't see it there. Yes, it can build a landing page and a downloadable guide, but it is not the same quality. But at the same time, it's not going to be able to take that landing page at this point and put it out on Meta custom audience and do YouTube skippable ads and all the things that need to be done, right? It still takes somebody that knows what they're doing. Um, I think it's a lot of cool things are going to happen. I think there's a lot of conversations right now, and over. I think it's exaggerated what it actually does at this point. I don't think it's quite there yet.
So it's a great coworker, but it's not your boss yet.
It's not your boss yet.
Not your boss quite yet. It might be on its way. It might be on its way, but no.
It could
Yeah,
be.
and I have seen some really amazing use of AI in CRMs
Hmm.
and aggregating data. But like you said, the aggregation of data is a really powerful use of it. But in creative content, it hasn't, as a guy that comes from a marketing background, it hasn't yet
Hmm.
met the
It's not there.
capabilities of what some of the most top professional creatives can do out there in the market. Far exceeds AI. And at the end of the day, you know,
Hmm.
I tell and I remind people that utilize AI, and we love AI both on the real estate side and in the VOOV side. But I remind them that AI is imitating us. It is
Mhm.
studying what humans have created. It is studying art we have created,
Yes.
and it is using that as its basis for creation. Therefore, at the end of the day, we are the inspiration for creation. So I think in that way, it will never be able to fully break that cycle because at some point we have to provide that input that would propel it to its next stage. So we talked a little bit about what team leaders might be making the mistake of. If you were advising a growing team leader today, what would you tell them to focus on over the next 12 months? And where would you see as their biggest opportunity?
It's actually impossible to answer without breaking that team down because
Okay.
you have to dig into the team. You have to look at everything that's going on from its people to its analytics to its KPIs. Um, Generally speaking, this will be a strong statement I'm going to make, but it's probably a true statement. Most teams in the United States are non-profitable and ego-driven. And where somebody's selling a bunch of houses, but when you look at their bottom line, they're not making any money.
Mm,
Um, so you really have to break down, and there's some fantastic teams out there too, right? But you have to break down the team and you have to look at where they're at. But we have to figure out where we're at and we got to figure out where we're going. And then we have to backwards engineer that.
yeah. That's very interesting. And I think that actually makes sense, right? Because it's not a one size fits all shoe. And you have to understand what their why is.
Hmm.
What is their vision and what is their
Yeah.
why for that vision. And maybe their vision may not be in alignment with the why. It,
Hmm.
it may not have been set. So that's a great point and a good answer. That's a slick one. That's why he's a coach. So we're going to jump into a little quick section called rapid fire, and then we're going to just shoot you some really simple questions, and you just kind of give us the first statements that come off the mind, and then
Oh,
we'll
we're gonna
button
play
up.
a game.
Yeah, we're going to do a little micro game. It's going to be a rapid fire game. And then after that, we're going to button it up with our $1 million question. But first, like I
Okay.
said, we're going to start off with rapid fire. So here it goes, David. I hope you don't catch any strays here. No, just kidding. It's
Okay.
pretty benign. So, one habit every agent should build right now:
Schedule.
schedule. Most underrated skill in real estate.
Um, NLP, learning conversating at high levels.
Ooh, NLP, that's a really good one. Neuro linguistic programming. That
Hmm.
used to be a huge subject matter like about a year or two ago, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside in popularity. But
Hmm.
that's an amazing one, very powerful for winning negotiations and breaking down those barriers. One
Hmm.
thing that agents waste too much time on.
Facebook.
Scrolling, doom
Scrolling.
scrolling, yeah,
Yes.
or worrying about what kind of content they should be creating and killing all
100%.
that time that they should be
Yes.
prospecting, right? Making those
Yes.
contacts you're talking about. Um,
100%.
they're like, I liked someone's post. That's not the same type of contact. What is the biggest opportunity in today's market?
Same as it always been. Contacts equal contracts.
Keeping it simple. I love it. And if you had to, and this is this is an easy one for you because you just did it. If you had to rebuild from zero, what would be your first move?
Building a business plan.
Yeah, building a business plan. I love that. Do you like that full circle? That was a
I
great
do.
full
That worked out
circle.
good.
We started with the business plan and now we're right
And
back
we
to
ended
it.
with a business plan.
Beautiful. And as I promised, there is a $1 million question. So, this is the $1 million question for you, David. If
Okay.
every real estate professional in the world, this is intense, was watching you right now,
Hmm.
what would you tell them that could completely change their approach to business leadership and growth?
So this is team leaders and individuals, right?
Yeah, we could focus to make it
Um,
easier. We
no,
could
actually,
focus.
it work because it's the same thing.
Okay.
Work with a purpose. And I was doing a training in front of a group. Can I answer it a little extended here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I was doing a training in front of a group a couple months ago, and I asked this question. I said, "How many of you are full time?" And everybody with pride raises their hand. They're all full time. Here was the next question. I don't know why I asked this, but I said, "How many of you actually work 40 hours a week diligently in your business, very efficiently, right? You're working 40 hours a week." And I think two people were left. And I realized this, that real estate is probably the only industry that the definition of full time means I don't have another job. But we spend way too much of our time not working. I'll have conversations with people. I say, okay, tell me how many hours, and this is what I do. How many hours were you on listing appointments? They said two. How many hours were you showing buyers? Three. How many hours did you spend in prospecting? Oh, I didn't get to that. Okay. How many hours spent in lead follow up? Well, I did three. Okay. And how many hours did you spend on marketing? Well, I didn't do any marketing. Well, that comes up with five. What did you do the other 35 hours? And it's really hard to figure out what you did the other 35 hours that, quite frankly, was not the things that you were supposed to be doing. So
Mm.
my advice is, if you're going to work, if you're not going to be taking time off with your children, if you're not going to be doing the things that you want to do, golf or whatever it might be, why not work efficiently while you're working? So if you're going to work 40 hours. And what we should be working on is having conversations, because that we're in sales, like it or not. We just happen to sell real estate, but we're salespeople. And if we're running teams, we're running a sales organization. And that means our job is to communicate. And if you're not communicating, you're not doing your job. And you should work, if you're going to work 40 hours, you should work 40 hours. So it's the efficiency of what you do. Our business is just highly, highly inefficient. And the top people, I'll tell you what, that's what they've learned. That's the secret. They've learned when they work, they're highly efficient. They're not
Mm.
working any more hours. They're just doing the right things when they work. So that's my answer to that question.
I love it. Are you actually working with purpose? Are you actually
100,
being
yes.
efficient with your time?
Yeah.
That's powerful because if we sit back and ask ourselves that question in our heart of hearts, I think all of us might not be as excited with the answer that we get, and we should work on efficiency. David, where can the people find you and what do you have going on next? That's super exciting.
Well, I'm a coach with Bill Pipes. So I love coaching. And at this point in my career, it's just, I have some other businesses I have, but my coaching career, I do it for one reason. It is just, I'm very much enjoy helping people succeed. My clients, I feel as if I'm in business with them. And I started coaching probably about 8 years ago. And I just found a real passion at this point. And it's quite frankly, it's what I'm going to do the rest of my life is coaching. My phone number is 269-251-8711. And I'm at David at coachpipes.com.
Well, David, we appreciate you for dropping knowledge for everybody watching today. It's been amazing getting to know you. I really enjoyed getting to hang out with you a bit more in Florida. We had a great time and picking your brain and learning a little bit more of the how and why behind the man, and also some tips and tricks on some great suits. He's got a tailor, everyone. He's got a great tailor. So if you want a great suit, he's also the coach that you need. But David, thank you again for coming onto the show and sharing your perspective, your experience, and your insights with us. And to everyone listening, if this episode gave you value, clarity, or motivation, make sure to follow. We got more coming. Like, share, drop us a comment. And until next time, stay focused, stay adaptable, and keep on cracking the code and do it all with purpose, like Coach David says.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah,
That was really
appreciate you.
fun. That was really
Yeah.
fun. You had some really cool ones in there, and I think the guys will have fun cutting it all together. And then they can tag you and everything. So I guess they'll
Okay.
coordinate with your assistant
Yeah.
and keep you up to date on when that gets done. They generally pepper things out, so I believe they do one release of the full form, and then they release the social media content throughout like the year
Okay.
on
Yeah.
various programs. So keep you
Wonderful.
posted. But I
Yeah.
appreciate it, and I look forward to collaborating again soon. I know I'm going to be coming to y'all's. I don't know if it's the very next event you have, with Bill, but
We have a Sales Power, which is in October, and November we have, and you should come to that. That is our next team event.
I think I'm going
Since
to the one. It's in DC.
DC is Sales Power, but the very next month is the team event.
And
So
where's that one
that is
located?
going to be in Park City, Utah.
I think yes. I think that one's on our
Yeah,
list too. So I do
yeah,
believe I'm
that's
actually.
going to be fun. Yeah,
That's awesome. Well,
yeah, it's going
we'll
to be fun.
stay in touch with you all, and if there's anything
Okay,
that we can do to help create a breakout moment or anything, let us know. We would love to collaborate there.
sounds good. Always good seeing you. Thanks.
Likewise. Thank you
Right.
very much,
See you.
David.
All right.
Bye.